Before he was feared, before he became a cultural icon, before the world called him Iron Mike, there was just a kid from Brownsville. But what happens when unimaginable rage meets unparalleled discipline? When a broken soul is trained to become a perfect weapon, you get something the world had never seen before. Mike Tyson, a man forged in fire, pain, and steel, earning the name Iron Mike not just for his punches, but for the sheer brutality he brought into the ring. In this video, we dive deep, not just into his knockouts, but into his psyche, his journey, and the iron legacy he left behind. Brace yourself. You're about to enter the mind of a monster who turned into a legend. Mike Tyson's transformation began under the watchful eye of Cus D'Amato. Abandoned by his father, thrown into juvenile centers, and surrounded by crime, Tyson had already tasted the worst of life. But Cus saw what others didn't, a volcanic potential waiting to erupt. Under Cus' tutelage, Tyson wasn't just trained to punch, he was conditioned to destroy. He was taught the peak boost style, aggressive, compact, and relentless. Most fighters learn to win. Tyson learned to conquer. Tyson's power was not human. He didn't just knock people out, he removed them from consciousness. His knockout ratio in the early part of his career was nearly 90%. Commentators said his punches sounded like gunshots. Fighters would lose before the first bell, intimidated by his cold, lifeless stare. But it wasn't just power. Tyson was mentally invincible in his prime. He believed he was chosen, destined to hurt people. He once said, "I want to hit them in the nose bone and drive it into their brain." That is not a man trying to box. That is a war machine. Mike Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history at 20 years old. But the most shocking part? He did it in just over a year after turning pro. From 1985 to 1986, he had 26 fights. That pace is unheard of today. In an era when boxers fight twice a year, Tyson was fighting monthly and winning with ease. Fighters were so terrified that they'd freeze up in the ring. In 1988, Michael Spinks, an undefeated champion, lasted just 91 seconds. That's not boxing, that's domination. The media dubbed him Iron Mike, not just because of his fists, but because nothing could dent him. His jaw, his will, his aura, it all seemed unbreakable. He walked into press conferences with no emotion. He wore plain black trunks and no robe, no flash, just fear. He didn't talk trash. His existence was the threat. Journalists called him a throwback to the 1930s, a gladiator in a modern ring. Iron wasn't about metal. It was about terror that walked like a man. Tyson's fights were short but terrifying. He'd deliver body blows that shattered ribs, uppercuts that cracked jaws. Watch his fight against Trevor Berbick. Tyson hits him once, and Berbick falls 3 separate times trying to get up. Tyson didn't just win. He erased people. He studied opponents' weaknesses with surgical precision. If a fighter dropped his left hand even once, Tyson would remember and end it within seconds. It wasn't luck. It was controlled violence. But iron bends under enough pressure. After Cus' death, Tyson's foundation began to crack. He got involved with shady managers, fell into partying, and his discipline deteriorated. In 1990, a 42-1 underdog named Buster Douglas stunned the world by knocking Tyson out. The invincible had fallen. But even in defeat, Tyson's image remained monstrous. He returned after prison and still sold out arenas. Even when past his prime, people came to see him because he was still Iron Mike, the most feared name in boxing. Tyson retired with 50 wins, 44 knockouts, and only 6 losses. He was a 2-time heavyweight champion, unified the WBA, WBC, and IBF titles, and became the face of boxing in the late 80s and early 90s. But numbers don't tell the whole story. He holds the record for the most first-round knockouts by a heavyweight champion. He was the highest-paid athlete in the world for several years. He was inducted into both the International and World Boxing Hall of Fame. But the most chilling stat? More than 20 of his opponents never fought again after facing him. Underneath the terror was a deeply hurt child. Tyson grew up watching his pigeons get killed by thugs. He had a lisp, was bullied, and had zero self-worth. Boxing gave him identity, and Cus gave him purpose. Without boxing, Tyson was lost. After retirement, he spiraled, drug addiction, bankruptcy, even contemplating suicide. But slowly, the beast became a man again. Tyson is now a podcast host, a businessman, and a surprisingly spiritual soul who reflects on his past with brutal honesty. Mike Tyson was more than a fighter. He was a phenomenon. No one before or after him captured the imagination of fans like he did. He made people love violence and fear the unknown. Iron Mike wasn't just a nickname. It was a warning, a message that if you stepped into the ring with him, you might not walk out the same. His story is one of power, pain, and personal growth. And in the end, the man once feared by the world became someone the world could finally understand and even admire.